1964 was the year that saw the Beatles release one of their most acclaimed albums, A Hard Day's Night, but we're not talking about that one today. That same year, the band needed another album, but with all the touring and filming, they didn't have the time to focus on a new project so quickly. However, they did have some covers they performed live, and John and Paul being the geniuses they are, they came up with enough songs to patch up an album. Thus, Beatles for Sale was released only months after A Hard Day's Night, and though it was a success, the critics were a little harsher on the album. Now listen, it does have a lot of covers, and the attention to detail isn't really there, and in a way, the album feels like a polished version of With the Beatles. But there's a lot more to this album than people realize. There's a lot of growth and evolution in this album, plus their performance level is through the roof. Paul McCartney's vocals in Kansas City are unbelievable, same with John Lennon's vocals on Mr. Moonlight. George and Ringo do stay in the backseat for most of the album, but you only need these two at their best to make a super enjoyable album, believe me. But that's the thing, it goes beyond being enjoyable. A good example of this would be Paul McCartney going for a more sophisticated tune in I'll Follow the Sun. Later on, these melodic moments by McCartney would provide a safe haven in the middle of some of the most experimental albums of the 60s. John Lennon's autobiographical lyrics in I'm a Loser later on became the foundations of songs like Julia, Help, I'm So Tired, and Across the Universe. In many ways, this album was the genesis of a more confident band, almost like a goodbye to the Beatlemania years as they got ready to make some of the best albums in the history of music. And listen, even if you don't want to think about all of that while listening to the album, there's enough energy, catchy tunes, high production value, and overall melodic bliss to enjoy it anyway. So yeah, while this album may have been a contractual obligation and it's clear that the band wasn't too excited, as you can see in the cover, the band still managed to make a 38-minute joyride filled with fun, which basically shows that even when they weren't trying, they were still able to come up with some incredible music.